Before we begin this episode, I want to give a huge shout out to all of our patrons over on patreon.com/bitterbrownfems. Y'all support really keeps this going. Right now, all $10 plus patrons get an extra episode every month. There's already been two for this season, and then there's another one coming up. The last one was about music, and this next one coming up will be about club culture. On top of that, like any like tier gets you access to like an archive of at this point like 80 years of like additional content for like sometimes as low as $1. So check it out. Again, that's patreon.com/bitterbrownfems. The link is in the description. And we want to give a huge shout out to Emmeline, Evelyn P, Cassandra G, and Christian G. Y'all are like really the best. And now we're starting the episode. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doop. And we're doing it live. Hello, 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 everyone. I am one of your hosts, Ruben, coming to you from Los Angeles, California.
Oh, and this is Cassandra coming to you from El Paso, Texas. I have not moved.
I haven't, I mean, I've moved my body, but I haven't moved like my stuff, and I'm not moving back to LA for the foreseeable future. Um,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
But you
because
are coming to us from LA right now.
yeah, right now I came to, I haven't been back home. I didn't come home for the last few holidays, so I haven't been back home for like more than a year. So, yeah, it was due time. But my mom's out of town because she didn't care enough to see her child for when he
Wow.
was visiting. So, and that, ladies, gentlemen, and gentlemen, is that why I don't live in LA because my family is a lot. But enough about me. Let's get to these topics. What do we got first, Cassandra? Oh
Um,
wait, before we begin, recession indicator of
okay. What's
of
going on?
this week. I feel like I just sent you something. Oh yeah. Lena Dunham is saying that she is very over New York and she is leaving New York, you know, and this is a girl who created Girls, the show that defined like white womanhood for millions of millennials essentially. And it was all about New York. Yeah.
Wow,
You loved Girls, right?
I've never seen that show. No, I forgot that Lena, am I
Yeah.
saying that right? Lena Dunham existed. She kind of like disappeared,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Um, did you watch Broad City?
I did watch Broad City. I don't know what season I got to. I didn't finish the entire show, but I feel like I watched at
Mm.
least four, at
It
least four
finished,
seasons.
yeah, it finished pretty strongly. There was only like, one blemish on that show, and that was the Hillary Clinton episode.
I feel like I watched that, and
That's
yeah,
probably when you
ugh.
tapped out. That's when a lot of people tapped out, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but, that show was like very proud of itself for being progressive, and then kind of making fun of like cringe millennial like activist culture in a way. And then when it
Mhm.
came to Hillary, they just kind of like reverted to that cringe millennial. And a lot of people who were with them for like progressive shit were just kind of over it. But they have some good shit. Like, you know, they had two episodes on um, like that was their season finale, like a two-part episode that was a big like allegory for like Palestine. Um, and that was like pretty pretty cool. I mean, this was like 2015 maybe, and they were
I
like
vaguely
already.
remember that. I think I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, let's get
All right,
to
well, she's leaving, so
yeah.
okay.
But that reminds me, not to make it like serious all of a sudden, but something that like I should have known and I kind of knew, but I didn't like it didn't hit me like super, it wasn't at the forefront. I just because everything that's happening in Palestine is atrocious, just like it didn't cross my mind like the definitiveness of like Israel has been blocking aid to Gaza for 60 days now, like straight up, period. There's nothing, all the food that they have now has been the only food that they've had since the end of February, right? So
Hmm.
that's fucking atrocious, and that is funded by U.S. tax dollars. Yeah, and today the conclave begins for a new pope. And it reminds me that Pope Francis like was always in solidarity with Gaza and even sent his Pope Mobile to which is bulletproof. It's like a essentially like murder proof, and he sent that to Palestine to try to bring aid to people. So shout out to a real one. Yeah.
Yes. So this, I wanted to talk a little bit about RFK's comments on autism, which happened like in April. What are we in May? Okay. Not that long ago, a few weeks ago. And I'm trying to find, I'm sorry, like the exact comments that he made, which doesn't really matter. And sorry, I have like a few articles pulled up here in case just in case you haven't heard about this, but essentially he stated that he was going to like find out what causes autism. Like he's gonna do this study on autism, like fund it, and see what causes autism because autism is destroying families and a lot of ableist fucking comments that he made. Um, which is a I don't even want to say it's a slippery slope to eugenics. I feel like creating a database.
Is
Sorry,
eugenics.
from that, sorry, from this study, he's saying that he's going to collect like private medical records to create a database of autistic people in the US, which is just like terrifying to me. I don't even know what to say about that. So everything from that press conference was like, yes, like eugenics, and then just like these very hurtful comments about essentially like autistic children specifically, right? And how they quote unquote ruin families and destroy families. And then there was like, there's pushback on this, of course. Like there was like petition that was started, and then they kind of like were like, no, it's not gonna be like it's not gonna be a database. It's just gonna be like they're pretty much like calling it something else now, but it's pretty much the same thing because people are like, it's the same thing. You're just changing the name. They're like, we're not creating an autism registry. It's creating a quotation marks real world data platform to link existing data sets for the research into causes and treatments for autism. So that's a lot. But yes, eugenics, and like when you think about it, it's like they're making a list. Where else have we seen this before? And I don't even know what to say about it. But it really has been on my mind, and it's terrifying as obviously a mother with an autistic child. Which makes me very emotional. And like, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on it, and I don't know if I could speak on it right now because it's a very personal thing. But yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to me.
Yeah. And what Cassandra was referring to about like, where have we seen lists before, right? That was in like Nazism, right? Like folks like yes, the Jewish people were the ones who were targeted directly, and you know the Holocaust happened to them, but that was things that snowballed from eugenist stuff, anti-LGBT stuff, um and anti-worker stuff, right? Anti-anarchist, anti-communist. They jailed and murdered political prisoners, detractors, on top of LGBT folks, right? On top of disabled folks. So these types of lists are eugenist by nature, they're fascist by nature, uh, and they're done again to create like a boogeyman, right? Like this thing that like affects for this. identity in the case of LGBT folks, identity that affects uh few people in this population and who are already marginalized are further targeted by these things to create a boogeyman so that folks don't pay attention to their rights being taken away. Right? It's something that like I have um learned and come to accept over the years through um Caleb, Dr. Chairbreaker, is that like we will all be disabled, right? Like that is the natural state of humankind, is that you know, no, if we are blessed to live very long and we survive without accidents, then body's like state is to eventually like lose some sort of faculty. And if you don't think that disability rights and these types of eugenicist practices aren't going to affect you, then you just have to wait a little bit because like even if you are perfectly, mentally and physically healthy right now, things can happen, and it's not just accidents, it's also just age. Um, and so this is just like a way to chip at individual rights, at human rights, by first targeting marginalized people that we feel we're so removed from. But even with like, I'm talking about disability now, but even when we're talking about identity and we're talking about, say, the restriction of like, or of like, uh, of trans people from restrooms that align with their gender, right? How do you think things like that are going to be enforced, right? With like uh, patriarchal, cis normative ways of policing people, policing particularly honestly like women, uh, women's bodies, right? Intersex people's bodies. This is gonna come down to like old-timey rules of like, oh, like you have to dress like this in public, and if you don't appear a certain way, then things are gonna, they're gonna be checked or whatever. So it's it's horrible this is happening. It's horrible that like this has any type of backing from anyone. And the reason they're doing that is because they are pulling, like they're masking this fascism through people's already ingrained hate.
Yes. So I do want to say first, obviously, why those comments are hurtful. I mean, first of all, saying that having an autistic child destroys families is like just like a terrible thing to say. But it creates this thing of autistic children being a burden and being something wrong, like something's wrong with them, that strains a family. And, going back to the episode of motherhood and parenthood, it's the exact same thing. It's like speaking as, again, as the mother to a child with autism. I am not autistic, so I also encourage people to talk to actual autistic people, like first and foremost. But I also know that there's a thing, I don't know, like there's a, I don't know what the term is, but there's a lot of moms who kind of are moms to autistic children, and they kind of like center themselves when talking about autism or talking about their children. And like I've seen a lot of like autistic people, autistic adults, like notice this enough to for them to be like, this isn't about you, and like there's a term for these moms. And so I always try to like not be that mom, while at the same time being like, it is okay for caretakers and parents of autistic children to be able to communicate and talk about those struggles, because you get to find support, right? But there is like a balance there. I just wanted to say that. But um yeah, it's going back to like motherhood and parenthood. It's like my child is not a burden. He doesn't, the only thing that I like it is hard and it is a struggle, but it's always because it's not because he's autistic, it's because there's no support. There's no support networks, not just for me, I would say for everybody, because there's really not a lot of support for autistic people in general. So, when we're talking about autism research and it's like, I'm sorry, but my son's already here. Like, also saying like we're going to find a cure for autism is like autism, it's not a negative thing, it's not a bad thing that needs fixing, that needs to be cured. And at the end of the day, for me, I'm like, my child's already here. Like, what the fuck do I care how he got autism? Like he's here, he's autistic, and like I would rather there be support for him than all this bullshit that they're trying to like, you know what I mean? That they're trying to do when really it's just you like covered like fascist eugenics. Like it's wild. The only thing, like for one of the big things is like ABA therapy that has been probably the only thing that's ever offered to me. And um ABA therapy, I am not for that. It's kind of like conversion therapy for autistic people. So it's kind of like showing them how to be quote unquote normal, how to be have social skills, how to a lot of it is enforced. I wouldn't say, I don't know if I would use the word violently, but it's a lot to do to a child to, that encourages them not to stim, for example, for them to sit down, for them to not yell, instead of, I guess, everyone else like just being fucking accommodating. It's like we're trying to teach autistic children how to quote unquote behave. And that is literally like the only thing that has ever been really like offered to me. Every time I try to go put my son in therapy or get any kind of anything, it's always just like ABA, and I always have to like turn it down because I'm against ABA. And then after that, it's like nothing. There's even within the school system. So I'm not even within my family. So it's like again, there really is not, there's little to no support for caretakers, for parents, for autistic people. But then we get this bullshit. You know what I mean? So sorry if none of that made sense. Like I said, this is a very heavy topic for me, but yeah, I just wish like people that say that they support autistic people, that always post about autism awareness or autism acceptance or change their profile picture like for autism awareness month, etc., like actually do that work. You know what I mean? Because a lot, like I feel like a lot of it is that just like we are aware, I'm a ally, I don't know, whatever, but it's like, are we like, what are we actually doing for autistic people? Like how are we showing up for autistic people in our lives? And especially, not that autistic children are more important than autistic adults, because I feel like the conversation is always about autistic children, like we don't even like think about autistic adults, but it starts there, right? Like the fact that an autistic child is born and then automatically it's like there's something wrong with them immediately, and something that needs to be fixed, versus how can you make the world safer and better for autistic people.
Yeah, I do like your comment about like, my child's already here, because it points to, I think, what what is also like, 'cause it's another problem of this is that like there is no like care for actual like disabled people in this whole conversation, because um there's not a conversation about like funding programs for disabled people, or ensuring that their quality of life is good. It's about, just like denying their existence, essentially, denying them existence. Um, and that's not really useful. Like it's not like there's folks who are living now with this who it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter where or how they got them. Just like it doesn't matter um whether or not somebody because this whole conversation reminds me of like finding the gay gene, right? And like which again
Like
is
the born this way. And
yeah, like the
sometimes I'm like, it doesn't even matter if you were born that way or if it's
yeah,
a choice. Like if you want to go be fucking gay, go be
yeah,
fucking gay.
which again I turn to my conversations with Dr. Chairbreaker Caleb Luna, who teaches disability studies and performance studies. They used to be in Berkeley, but now I think they're in Santa Barbara. But they have a whole section in some of their courses about like actually some of us choose to be queer. Like we wake up every day and we make a decision to be queer. And basically goes against the born this way argument because sure that being queer might be like something that some people identify as being born this way, but then, there's other people who like choose every day to live in their truth, right? When it could be as easy to hide. Or they give space to people who like honestly found queerness through trauma, right? And oftentimes we want to silence that narrative, but you know, uh, Dr. Caleb is like, well, why are we silencing that? What is wrong with like this uh, uh, acknowledging that some people come to queerness through pain? Um, and so as it relates to disability, um, like disability is not an issue like a issue that needs to be like eradicated from birth like that, right? Why the bigger question is why do we live, why does our society create a world in which disabled people are a burden, in which quote unquote in which disabled people are not given rights and are not treated as full humans to the point that, they're made to feel like they can't live on their own and on the other hand can get married um like it's a societal issue, it's a structural issue, but it's easier for these types of fascist people to point at an individual and say you are the problem that needs to be eradicated, not this ableist society, this capitalist society that demands labor from everyone. And when it sees folks who cannot contribute to a labor-run society, it wants to eradicate them.
Exactly. Yes. So, I wish there was more I could add on that, but yeah, we'll have to come back to this another day. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to add to that because I agree with everything you said. I think, yeah, I know April was like Autism Acceptance Month, so I'm assuming that's why they said all that on that month. But just as a reminder that autism, again, autism acceptance is not just in April, it's every day. Um, and yeah,
That
um, go ahead.
That does remind me, like, while we're on this topic, like, fuck it, Autism Speaks, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't fuck with them. They have a very bad history of actually, like, engaging with the autistic community. So, like, fuck them. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And like just again thinking of like if you consider yourself an ally or like know someone who's autistic and like you're like, yes, pro autism acceptance, like to think more of like just more than puzzle pieces, more than, just like this very surface level of autism awareness that is like, we can talk about so many things that affect not just all autistic people, autistic children, um, like just like the level of state violence, cops killing autistic children and autistic adults like by the numbers all the time, like fuck the police, fuck the police, but they are a threat to autistic people everywhere. And in order for autism people to live freely, we need to eradicate the police. I just want to say that because there's so many. There was a story last month too of an autistic child, a teen who was killed by police, and this is not an isolated incident. And every time something like that happens, people are like, "We need to put a sign outside my door that says an autistic child lives here," and I'm just like, and like first stop calling the cops when your autistic child is having a meltdown or when anyone is in distress. We've already like cannot stress that enough, but especially on your child because cops are like they do all these like cops are training for autism, like autism training. It's like you're still killing them. So it just like with all disabled people, right? Like people that are having mental health crises, yeah, so that it's like very little things. Like if you see a child that you may or not know is autistic out in public having a meltdown, instead of judging and being annoyed, kind of I mean, if you're not obviously sometimes you cannot like help, right? Especially if it's a stranger, but the least you can do is like mind your business and walk away because the last thing that caretakers need is like feeling like they're being judged out in public or like our kids cannot exist in public spaces because people are like first of all they don't want children to exist in public spaces, but especially like kids that are having meltdowns or kids that are in distress or crying or being loud. And a lot of those kids could be autistic and they don't need to be autistic for you to, not be a piece of shit and not be rude, but a lot of them are. And I feel like a lot of people, again, throw this like autism awareness where it's like very surface level bullshit, like a ribbon online, but it like is a lot more than that.
Yeah, I am. Oh, yeah, you brought up like police violence, and I immediately think about like Elijah McClain, who was killed in
Mm-hmm.
August of 2019, and his case didn't even make the public uh, like uh public knowledge like really until 2020, right? But he was a disabled like young man, barely 23, who was killed by being injected with ketamine, like 500 milligrams of ketamine, and like died over a 6 day period. When the police stopped him for absolutely no reason. Um, this was a young black man that played the violin, played the violin to freaking cats, like a fucking angel of a human, which like again, this doesn't matter like whether or not people shouldn't be killed by police, period, right? But Elijah McClain just like always sits at the front of my mind when we're talking about like disability rights and how they intersect with police brutality. Um,
And just because I do want to say his name was Victor Perez. He was 17, and so he was autistic and he was nonverbal. And I guess, he was shot. This was in Idaho. And he was shot, I don't know how many times, went into a coma, and they had to remove him off life support. And it reminds me, when I talk about the support that I want to say have or haven't received, like, for example, the school district, which is like a whole other trauma for me, just dealing with like the school districts, with teachers, with counselors. Um, the school is not also, it's not designed for autistic children. Like I feel like my son has just been passed around from school to school, from room to room because they don't know how to, they don't want to, I should say, not, they don't know how, they don't know how to, they don't want to accommodate him. That's another story. But one of the things is like they would send, or they have like an autism specialist, quotation marks, for the district, and then they'll send, I forgot. There was this one woman who at first I initially thought, that she was there to help, and she started talking about ABA therapy. And when I realized that was the route that she was trying to go in, I had told her, like, you know what, I don't believe in ABA therapy. Kind of like maybe there's something else we can try. And then she kind of just dropped me from receiving any kind of services. from her, but I remember one thing she had told me was, you know, which is again ABA, was like my son needs to learn how to um behave. At the time he was having a lot of meltdowns, which consist of, um being overstimulated. And so there's crying. Sometimes it would get physical, right? Like hitting, biting, mostly to me. And so we were trying, I was trying to find support in how to handle that, obviously. And I remember telling her, or I remember her saying something like that he needs to know how, kind of learn how to be quote unquote normal, because if a cop were to see my son, they're not going to know he's autistic and they're just going to kill him. And I'm like, my son is like, why does my son need to learn how to behave so that he doesn't get killed? Right? Um, so it always brings me back to these um stories of cops, killing autistic children. And that's why this whole conversation again is very emotional and like heavy and like personal for me. And yeah, I just want people to like, I don't know, just do something more than autism awareness.
Yeah. Um, so all that is things that have been happening in around disability and autism in the last few weeks. Um, I also think a lot about somebody tweeted like another way that like disability and autism like intersects with like queer and trans identity is that um well, first of all, like queerness was seen as like a disability as part of like the things you can diagnose that as until like the 90s. And then being trans was seen as like something you can be diagnosed as. Like gender dysphoria is still something you have to get diagnosed as in order to get care in a lot of places in the US and globally. So like our identities are seen as disabilities already. So like that I think about that, and I also think about this ongoing uh pattern of like a lot of LGBT folks are also um diagnosed with like mental disabilities, and often one of them is like um is autism, like adult autism. And um things like ADHD are called like part of that spectrum as well. Um And somebody tweeted about like how it's troubling that for the last decade or so, LGBT folks have either self-diagnosed or have been diagnosed as autistic or some other mental illness. Meanwhile, like the government is trying to do like eugenics. Um, so all that stuff is like stuff to keep in mind, stuff that like these things don't happen in isolation and they affect folks across identities, like, if you find yourself with a ton of privilege.
Yes. And on that note, I wanted to say another thing that I also think this was a few weeks ago that the Trump administration had proposed to, I want to see what these are. Give me, but essentially saying that they want Americans to have more babies and that they had proposed like a $5,000 baby bonus to convince people, you know, that it's a good idea to have a baby. And I'm like, bitch, get the fuck out of here. Five, like it's just so fucking laughable, first of all. No, like there's a lot of reasons people do not want to have kids. I don't know like the statistics, I don't know the numbers right now. I'm just the state of the world right now. It's kind of like I could see people are broke, bitch. Like $5,000, like weekly, weekly payments of $5,000, maybe, maybe. But I cannot imagine someone being like, yes, let me have a baby because I want $5,000. And then at the same time, I'm like, the way y'all were acting with those stimulus checks, I don't know. Because y'all were acting like Trump did something with those stimulus checks.
Girl,
So
where are your $2,000 now?
people
Shit.
were really saying, like, I remember, like, oh, well, Biden never did anything. Like, at least Trump gave us money. He gave, oh my gosh. Okay, Brokey.
Oh my
Like,
God.
okay.
Embarrassing.
Um, but and then it's wild too because you know that they mean like white children, which is like hilarious to me. Like, no, not you. Only the white people get the bonus.
Oh, that's real as fuck. Oh my God. This world. Um, God. Um, yeah, that is the extent of what I need to say about that. Um, did we want to go into just the closing and just what made you less bitter on this Cinco de Mayo?
Yes, I totally forgot it was Cinco de Mayo today,
I never
actually.
forget. Oh my God, that was mine.
Was you're in Portland,
That
or
was
well, you're in
in
LA right
LA,
now.
bitch. Oh, I literally, you know what? You know what made me less bitter? Going to Jenny Rivera's favorite cafe, Cafe Canela today, and a couple days ago too. I love Jenny Rivera. I am like she like brings out the spick in me for real. Um,
Was
yeah,
that how you, that was yesterday or today?
that was today and then a couple days ago too.
Okay, so that's how you celebrated Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, I celebrate
All
Cinco de
right.
Mayo every day.
Real beaner hours.
No,
Um, I went to go see Sarah Farrell on Thursday.
Chicana icon.
And on May Day, actually, and I say May Day because she actually shouted out May Day and like the class, gave a speech on like class and her music, and
Yeah.
it was so funny because if you're not familiar with Sarah Farrell, she's so fucking cute, and her last album was one of my favorite albums last year. It's so good. You should check it out. If she's, I wouldn't say she's country. I'd say she's more folky, like Americana. And so the crowd, obviously, well, there's lots of whites, and a lot of older white people. And every time she was talking about May Day or class struggle or class solidarity or fascism, like anything, I could tell they were like, oh, she's woke. Like, I came to this fucking woke concert. Like, because her, I'm sure they like obviously enjoy her music. She's so talented. But I love that. I loved being in the crowd for that. So yeah, that made me less bitter because I love her. And yeah, I saw her in Albuquerque, and then I also stayed there for the weekend for a few days. So it was nice. It was nice to get away, and it was nice to see her and eat good food. Not that there's not good food here, but every time I go to Albuquerque, this was like the first time that I'm like, okay, I saw a lot of Albuquerque and now I know where there's good food. Whereas before, it was just kind of in and out, or not the food, like just like I went in and out. It was a quick trip. And anyway, I had a good weekend and that made me less bitter.
Would you say that they have better Tex-Mex food than El Paso?
They're not Tex-Mex. They're New Mexico, so they're all about green chili.
How is
Green chili.
Tex-Mex not New Mexico?
It's not.
Oh,
They're
because it's
all,
not Texas.
it's not Texas.
Duh. Stupid ass.
Yeah.
Delete that.
Okay, delete, delete.
First
Not on
edit we
Cinco de
make.
Mayo, bitch.
The first edit I make all season.
No, they're all about the green chile on everything, fucking New Mexicans. But yeah. Anyway, so oh yeah, this is our first episode of May. Next weekend is Mother's Day. It's Milfy month. We take the whole month, at least I do. So I don't know. Thank and gift the special MILF S plural in your lives this month.
Shout out to MILFs. Y'all make the world go round.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All
And
right,
with
we'll
that,
see.
We'll see you soon. Not next week, because next week we're taking a moment, but you might get a special episode. So get on that Patreon, bitches.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.